My best friend stole my life's work and got me fired. She thought an NDA would silence me, but she forgot I'm the only one who knew the truth. For 5 years, Olivia and I were inseparable. We were the powerhouse duo at Sterling & Croft, one of the top architecture firms in the country. We'd met in college, two ambitious women ready to build the future. Our friendship was forged over late-night study sessions and cheap coffee, and it felt as solid as the foundations we dreamed of designing. Together, we were working on the Evergreen Tower, a career-defining, sustainable skyscraper that was more my baby than a project. After years of relentless work, we were finally celebrating a milestone. Olivia raised her champagne glass, her eyes sparkling in the candlelight of our favorite restaurant. She said, "To us, Chloe, and to the Evergreen. Soon, the whole world will see what we have built." Her smile was warm and genuine, and I felt a surge of love for this woman who was more sister than friend. I had no idea her smile was a beautifully constructed lie, and that behind it, she was meticulously planning my demolition. 3 weeks later, I was called into a surprise meeting with the senior partners. The air in the glass-walled conference room was frigid. Olivia was not there. Mr. Sterling, a man I had idolized, slid a termination letter across the polished mahogany table. He said, his voice devoid of any warmth, "Chloe, we have irrefutable evidence that you have been leaking proprietary designs for the Evergreen project to a rival firm. This constitutes gross negligence and a severe breach of contract. The firm is terminating your employment, effective immediately." The words didn't make sense. It felt like they were speaking a foreign language. What? That's impossible. I would never. A woman from HR pushed another document in front of me. "This is a non-disclosure and severance agreement. Sign it, and you can leave quietly. If you fight this or speak of it to anyone, we will pursue legal action to the fullest extent of the law." I was blindsided, railroaded. My mind was a vortex of confusion and panic. I signed. What else could I do? As I walked out of the office, carrying my life in a cardboard box, the last thing I saw was Olivia rushing towards me, her face a perfect mask of horror and disbelief. She threw her arms around me, her embrace feeling like a cage. Olivia whispered fiercely, "This is insane, Chloe. A mistake. We're going to fight this. I'll talk to Sterling. I'll fix it." For the next 2 weeks, she was my shadow. She brought me food, let me cry on her shoulder, and promised me she was working on it behind the scenes. She was my only lifeline in a sea of despair. I trusted her completely. I was a fool. The truth came on a Tuesday night. I was scrolling numbly through an industry news site when I saw the headline, "Sterling & Croft announce new lead architect for highly anticipated Evergreen Tower." The article was accompanied by a picture. It was Olivia, standing in front of my design wall, her hand resting proprietorially on my original concept model. She was smiling, the same warm, genuine smile she had given me over champagne. The betrayal was a physical sensation. It felt like the floor had dropped out from under me, plunging me into a cold, dark abyss. Every word of comfort, every hug, every promise had been a lie. She hadn't been helping me. She had been clearing away the debris of my career so she could build her own upon its ruins. She hadn't just taken my project. She had taken my life's work, my reputation, and 5 years of my trust, and ground them into dust. My first instinct was to burn everything to the ground. I called a lawyer, my voice shaking with rage, but he delivered the grim reality. The NDA I had signed was iron-clad. If I so much as whispered that Olivia had stolen my work, Sterling & Croft would sue me into oblivion. They had the resources to bury me in legal fees for the rest of my life. Olivia had thought of everything. She had locked me in a silent prison. The weeks that followed were a blur of depression and powerless fury. Olivia was everywhere. She was in magazines, on blogs, being hailed as the industry's new visionary. I watched her give interviews, talking about her design philosophy, using words and phrases she had stolen directly from me. She was performing my life, and she was getting a standing ovation for it. To make matters worse, she began a quiet smear campaign, telling our mutual friends I was having a breakdown, that I was unstable and delusional. She was not only stealing my future, she was rewriting my past. The breaking point was a feature in Architecture Digest. It was a glossy, 10-page spread titled, "The Vision of Olivia Kane." There she was, beaming on the cover, my sketches framed on the wall behind her. Inside, she talked about the moment of inspiration for the building's unique biophilic Cora moment. I had experienced a story. I had told her in confidence. As I stared at her smiling face in that magazine, something inside me shifted. The grief and despair receded, replaced by a cold, quiet resolve. She thought she had won. She thought the NDA and her lies were an impenetrable fortress. But she had forgotten one thing. She had stolen the blueprints, but she had never understood the soul. I spent the next month locked in my small apartment, not wallowing, but working. I couldn't sue, and I couldn't speak out directly, but I could tell my own story. I sifted through years of my personal archives, my initial napkin sketches, my journals filled with notes, the photos I'd taken of the overgrown community garden, my late grandfather, had tended the true inspiration for the Evergreen's core. And most importantly, my video logs. Hours of footage of me, alone in my apartment, talking to my webcam as I worked through design problems, my voice filled with the passion and frustration of the creative process. All of it was time-stamped, a perfect, unassailable record of my journey. The day of the Evergreen Tower's grand unveiling was a massive media event. The mayor was there, news vans lined the street. Olivia, in a stunning designer dress, was the star of the show. She stood at a podium, ready to give her speech. She had no idea her world was about to end. That morning, I had launched a website. A simple, elegant online portfolio. I called it An Architect's Journey, the Story of a Tower. I didn't mention Sterling and Croft. I didn't mention Olivia's name. I didn't need to. I simply and beautifully laid out the evidence of my creation. I told the story of my grandfather's garden. I posted the scans of my journals, the photos, the early sketches, and I embedded the video logs, clip after clip of me passionately describing the evolution of every key design feature. I sent the link to every major architecture, blogger, journalist, and critic I knew. By the time Olivia stepped up to the microphone, the story was already spreading like wildfire through the industry. Inside the press conference, phones were buzzing. A young, hungry journalist from an online architecture journal got to the Q&A microphone first. She asked, her voice polite but firm, "Miss Kane, it's a stunning design. I was particularly struck by the helix structure of the central atrium. Could you talk a bit about your original inspiration for mimicking the growth pattern of the lupinous succulent?" I had spent a month on that detail, inspired by a specific plant in my grandfather's garden. I had talked about it for 20 minutes in one of my video logs. Olivia froze. Her confident smile faltered. I could almost see the frantic search behind her eyes. She knew the technical specifications, the load-bearing calculations, the material costs, but she had no idea what a lupinous succulent was. She stammered, "Well, the helix is an incredibly strong and efficient structure. From an engineering perspective, it was the most logical choice to support the biophilic elements." The journalist pressed, "So it was an engineering choice then, not an artistic or inspirational one?" Olivia's eyes darted around the room, a cornered animal realizing the trap had sprung. She couldn't answer. The silence stretched, and in that silence, her entire fabricated career collapsed. Everyone in that room, and everyone watching online, knew she was a fraud. I didn't stick around to watch the fallout. Months later, the dust has settled. Olivia was fired and has become a pariah in the industry, a cautionary tale. Sterling and Croft, facing a massive scandal, issued a public apology and a quiet, very generous settlement. Today, I stood on an empty lot downtown, the contract for my own firm's first project in my hand. The air was crisp.